Um, so why are we having this webinar? Well, we've been hearing a number of things from folks like Jessica out in the field in higher education, and y'all are facing some real challenges as departmental admins. The biggest one that we often hear, even in this year 2024, managing PDFs and paper documents, and then endless email threads to get a business process complete, to get an approval to go through. It's just still a lot of manual processes that are in place. And that, of course, leads to data security issues and data accuracy issues. If you have to manually transfer data from a PDF or a paper document and type that into another system, that invariably leads to some data corruption of some sort. And of course, the least secure kind of document that we can have is a physical paper document just kind of floating around. Uh, Ultimately, that all leads to delays in approvals, in lengthy timelines. Just getting a process from start to finish takes a long time right now in higher education. So those are the main frustrations that we've been hearing. I expect that resonates with a lot of you on this webinar today. So before we dive in to talk about Build, and I hand things over to Jessica, I have just a few slides, and I'll make this quick, I promise, to talk about Kuali, the company, and then a little bit about Kuali Build, the product that Jessica will be speaking about today. At Kuali, we like to say that we're building software for the future of higher education. But the Kuali story really begins back in 2004, when a small group of colleges and universities came together to solve two main problems that they were experiencing acutely. The first was poorly designed software that wasn't a good match for their needs. And the second was relationships with vendors that didn't feel like partnerships. So this group of colleges and universities pulled their resources together to create software with the mantra of created by higher education for higher education. And a lot of schools were attracted to that, and the community grew rapidly, and the software was very quickly widely adopted. But over the course of the next decade, the industry was changing, and one of the things that really became prevalent and in high demand was software as a service. And we had a lot of our customers. And so the foundation wasn't really equipped to provide that type of service. So in 2014, the decision was made to create and invest in a private company, Kuali as we know it today, that could offer a software as a service solution, but also really focus on a unified design and accelerated software development to really deliver those features more quickly to our customers. So since 2014, the company has just grown exponentially. Today, we have over 230 colleges and universities using Kuali software, and that includes Jessica and our friends from Occidental College here in California. So where are we today? In 2024, we are introducing the Kuali platform, and we've had, for 20 years now, a variety of products designed specifically for higher education. That includes financial management software, business continuity planning software for emergency management folks, or anybody who deals with emergency planning and you need to have those continuity plans in place. An entire suite of products dedicated to research administration, and another suite of products for curriculum and catalog management and syllabus. And finally, the product we're going to be talking about today, which historically has been more focused to central IT groups, but really has broader applications for departments across the university, and that is Kuali Build. Some of the main benefits of Kuali software include that it's always mobile ready, right? So we take a design for mobile first approach. Ease of use is paramount. Part of Jessica's story today really hinges on this idea that it doesn't require a lot of technical know-how or training to really dive in and start using the software in very powerful ways. And finally, it's accessible. It's again, kind of like mobile first. It's designed to be accessible to everybody who would approach our software. A couple other benefits, kind of foundational to how Kuali builds and delivers software. The first is continuous delivery. You don't have to worry about the big summer update coming with a waterfall approach. And then, this is kind of how Apple likes to do my iPhone. Every year I get this new OS that's got 50 new features and I don't know how to use any of them because who has the time to learn all of that at once? So we do continuous feature delivery where when we have a new feature, we ship it immediately so that you don't have to wait for the big update to get the new shiny, cool new feature in our software. And finally, we have a zero bug policy. And that's not to say that we don't have bugs. Like any software company, we do. But when we find a bug, we fix it immediately. So that is how we go about our software business. So quickly, a little bit about Kuali Build. Kuali Build is our no-code solution for online forms and workflow automation. It's designed exclusively for higher education institutions. And so when you talk about online forms and workflow automation tools that are out there, a couple different categories of software become apparent as you look and see what's out in the market. The first are tools that we would describe as simple and easy tools. These are things along the same vein of Google Forms or SurveyMonkey. They're really easy to use and they don't require a developer, but they don't necessarily meet all the business requirements for, there's no workflow routing. There's no, signature capability. They're very basic. And then the other option you have is solutions we would describe as complex and powerful. They're capable of doing robust workflows and really advanced forms and data integrations, but they require a lot of technical expertise, coding in most cases. A lot of them are described as low-code solutions. So someone with technical know-how has to go in and build all these things. Kuali Build is the best of both worlds. It is a easy and powerful tool. It is a no-code solution. So there's no developer required to build really powerful, intricate, sophisticated workflows and forms. And so it's going to meet your business requirements. And it's also affordable. We have a very simplified pricing model. We don't price based on like the number of forms you create and whatnot. We like to keep things simple for you. And ultimately what that results in is it enables IT to quickly increase their capacity through this concept of citizen developer, right? So folks like Jessica out at the departmental level across the university, they're building their own forms, they're building their own workflows, they're solving their own problems and really being masters of their domain, if you will. It also, as we said here, empowers departments to create their own forms and workflows. So this really frees central IT up to take on more strategic initiatives or really focus on developing those back-end integrations, which they can make available to departments so that your various third-party systems are moving data in and out of your various build solutions, Kuali Build solutions. So where are we today? So since we started counting in 2020, a total of 13,749 apps have been built using Kuali Build. So these are different forms and workflow automations across our various customers out there, with a total of almost 2.5 million submissions. And so the way I like to think about this number is that's 2.5 million paper documents that weren't filled out, PDFs that weren't filled out, or emails that had to go back and forth all over creation. So really saving a whole lot of time and hassle for a lot of folks. And the secret sauce, the reason that that's been able to happen is the fact that we have over 10,000 individuals like Jessica out in the field creating their own forms and workflows. So with that, that's my quick intro into Kuali the company and Kuali Build the product. We've got this lovely photo of Occidental College. Jessica, I'd like to go ahead and hand things over to you now. So I'll stop sharing.
Right, wonderful. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Alrighty, so in this session, it's take control, transform higher ed admin process with no code solution. I am going to talk about how we transition from paper forms to digital process using Kuali Build. And a little bit about myself. So my name is Jessica Ochoa. I'm the HR recruitment administrator here at Occidental College. I have been here for about 3 years. It seems like it flew by, but I have been here for 3 years. A little bit about Occidental. So we are situated on a 120-acre residential campus in the heart of Los Angeles, California. So founded in 1887, Occidental College is one of the first liberal arts colleges in California and remains one of the small number of colleges nationwide focused strictly on undergraduate education. So total enrollment in 2023, we had about 1,938. The top majors are economics, biology, psychology, diplomacy and world affairs, media arts and culture. Full-time faculty, we have about 198, and staff and administrators, approximately 736. I am counting full-time temporary positions here on campus, and then student workers for the academic year for 23-24, we have approximately 733. So if you care to learn more about Oxy, I did provide the link down here just in case you want to visit our website and see a little bit more of who we are. So I wanted to go ahead and just dive in and let you know 2 of the processes or 2 of the forms that I work closely with our HRS and ITS team. When I first began here at Oxy, a lot of our forms were just paper. There was no electronic forms. There was no process as far as sending a form it would just be via email. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with the first form here that we did go ahead and build, which is the position request form. So when a department is in a need of hiring or recruiting for their specific department, they would submit this form. So what would happen, there was a before me, which this form was picked up at the Human Resources office. The during me, there was an electronic process as far as requesting the digital PDF form of this document. So I'm going to go step by step of how we used to process this form. So as mentioned, the hiring manager from the department completes the position request form. The step 2, hiring manager requests the department manager review approval via email or in person. So when I say via email, like I mentioned, they would send the PDF version via email, have them review it, sign it off, or they would go walk to specifically the office, have them review it and sign it off themselves. So the step 3 would be the hiring manager requesting the division VP chair review and approval via email or in person. Again, via email, or they had to walk specifically to their office to request that signature. Step 4 would be the hiring manager sends the completed approval position request form to human resources. So this process would be, again, either via email or they would hand it off to human resources. So during these cases, a lot of the times they would just drop it off, they'd just leave it there, and sometimes they could get lost or they get buried in our email. So this was one of the things that we would do. So human resources will review the document and ensure all the information is accurate and complete. There are cases where all of the information wasn't complete, so human resources would have to go back, email, or call and request the information so we have all the accurate information. So you can see how that process can be delayed, or it will be a back and forth within emails or just a delay in general. So human resource will log the position request form in an Excel sheet for record purposes. So what I would do is I, of course, would get the form. We had an Excel sheet where I would log it and write the number of where we have specifically logged that position request form. And we would write it down as where it says requisition number. So it was a lot of a manual process. So once all the information is complete, Human Resource will request approval from the Budget, Business, and Human Resources Office. So before my time, I am aware that Human Resources would walk from office to office to request these signatures. But during my time, I did have the email in which we would go ahead and send this via email and request the approvals via email or a signature through the PDF version of this document. So Human Resources will go back to the Excel sheet and indicate that the form is approved. So I would have to open the document again, write that it was approved, the date that it was approved. And once the request for the position is approved, Human Resources will inform the manager via email. So that conversation, again, is another email just informing them that the position was approved and what are the next steps. So Human Resources will then post the position and begin the recruitment process. So as you can see, it's a long process. Again, how I mentioned, a lot of emails, a lot of back and forth, and a lot of situations where the forms were not complete and it was just becoming too much, not only for the department, myself, Human Resources, but also for the department that was submitting the form, because again, a lot of back and forth just delays that process of recruiting or finalizing this step. So with that being said, we saw the need for this form to be used via Kuali. So we created the following form. Of course, with the assistance of our HRS and our ITS team, we went ahead and created this form that would document all the required fields that we need. And we made it a requirement so that that way they know that they're aware that they need to complete these forms and all the fields need to be complete. The great thing about this is that we did go ahead and pull data from our banner system to make sure that they are selecting the correct department, selecting the correct job title, and stating the correct fund or how the position will be funded. So with the help of Kuali, we were able to, again, gather all that data accurately. So I just wanted to go ahead and share this video of, just a brief video of how this form works. That way you understand how we went from paper to an electronic form. So I'm just gonna let it go through so you can go ahead and see that.
So I'm curious, Jessica, so this looks great, and having required fills probably saves a lot of headaches, but I'm curious, the previous process that you described from start to finish, on average, how long do you think it would typically take to run from soup to nuts through that entire process?
It would take a couple days, I would say about a week or so, given that back and forth. So it's a lot of back and forth. It's not, keep in mind, we are getting not only regular, we're getting temporary positions coming in. So doing that back and forth, sometimes they might not be in the office, sometimes they will be in the office. So it would take about 3 to 5 days to actually finalize what they are submitting.
Yeah, when you described actually physically walking around on campus to collect signatures, I just imagined, each process taking a while. So now that you have this form, how has it changed in terms of the time required to complete a process?
So it's been fairly quick. The great thing with this, which I'm going to go over the specific workflow for this particular form, but it has been quicker than the 3 to 5 days. Usually we would get the form, for example, I will go over exactly the workflow, but the submitter will go ahead and submit the information, they send it to their department manager, they get an email, their department manager will review that information, sign it off, send it over to the VP approval, and this is all an automated process. So once they submit it, they get that notification from an email. It's not them sending them an email or walking to their office. Is an automated email, and it's just a specific workflow that works. It takes sometimes a day. It depends on how fast everyone is as far as that goes. So a day or so for the full approval, as far as from the department to the VP approval. And of course, there we have our HR process, which is outside from Kuali. So that is specifically that form, but I want to go ahead and go over the workflow. So give me one moment. All righty. So this is our position request form workflow. So as I mentioned, I'm going to go over just a little bit more in depth regarding every workflow that we have or step that we have here. So as mentioned, the hiring manager will complete the electronic form. We'll send it over to our department manager. Department manager reviews, makes any comments. The great thing is that they can make comments specifically before they approve the form, so that the next person or myself in human resources or anyone in the department that's finalizing or reviewing this form is able to see the notes. So department manager makes notes, approves it, sends it over to the VP for approval. Same thing, the VP will review, make any notes, make any changes if needed, and then we'll send it off specifically to human resources. So what happens there is that I get a notification that the position has been approved by the department manager and by VP. During this process, also, we get a notification or acknowledgement that our HR director gets as well, and our recruitment specialist gets as well, just so that they can know what's coming. If it is a new position, this is something that during the process when we first implemented the electronic position request form, we were looking at how can we make it better? So the great thing is that we were able to make it better. So for example, there's a section where if they select that this is a new position, we have created a step so that we can create that new position and write that information in the comments section, so that when it gets to human resources, I already know what the position number will be. Before that, I would have to go back and forth with our business office and our budget office, making sure that they're selecting this new position. What can be our new position number? So again, it was a lot of back and forth, but with this additional step, we were able to incorporate this step as far as indicating new position, the position number. So as mentioned, human resources gets the notification and we review it. So most of the cases, we have all the information that is required. The great thing about Kuali is if there is anything that is missing or anything as far as that does not make sense, we are able to push it through or send it back to the person who submitted the form. So it could be either the person who submitted the form, the person who is the first approver, or the VP, depending on who made those changes. We can send it back to that person. So this minimizes the back and forth emails and the numerous emails, because I can send, before I will be sending it to one person, then I'll create another email, and then just gathering all this information, where in this form, I'm able to review all the notes that were made specifically for this electronic form, and I'm able to have it in one place. So that is the end of that specific electronic position request form, going back to what we had before versus what we have now. It has been wonderful. It has been a great tool that we have used to incorporate in our system. So again, we are always changing, and the great thing with Kuali is that we're able to make those changes depending on the need of the college.
So one thing I always love to point out, the first time I saw this workflow builder in action, I was really impressed, and it looked like a lot of fun. And this doesn't quite capture it because it's static, but when you build these workflows, each of these sections, each of these steps are swappable. It's interactive. And so you can grab a section and physically just drag it and move it around, or put a step inside of a step, or create branches so that, you have if-then statements depending on the behavior of the person filling, or, something they did in the form. You can have it route in a couple different directions, but it's really neat to see folks just sort of dragging steps around and rearranging these workflows. And I would imagine it's probably hard not to get carried away and add a lot of complexity to it because it's easy to do. It's really neat to do. Jessica, we did have a couple of questions here. The first is from Anne, and she is wondering, does the original form submission date change if a form is recycled back to a previous level to the date it was sent back, or is the original submission date retained? There's a lot in that question. I'm going to read it
Yes,
again. Does the original form submission date change if a form is recycled back to a previous level to the date it was sent back, or is the original submission date retained?
Okay, it retains the original. So it will tell me originally when that was submitted. So it's just sending it back for corrections, but the initial submission date stays effective.
Great. I hope that answers that question because I'm not sure. It was a lot. I think there's like HR language that you guys have, right? Secret language that you guys share. This next question comes from Michael, and he noticed that there was no drop-down menu for one of the fields in the form, and he's wondering, is there a table behind accounts and funding source?
So the reason why we created that is because for the purpose of grants or for the purpose of restricted accounts, sometimes they do change. So we wanted to make that field easy to access or easy to just write anything that it needs to be changed. So for example, if that position is linked to a specific budget line and moving forward, it's going to be switched to another budget line, then we are able to make that change. And there's no back and forth in another separate form. So it's just for them to have that ability to make a change if needed. This is only if it is a replacement, but if it's a replacement, then it would have what it currently has. But it's just a field to just make sure that we're capturing any data just in case they need to indicate that information, just so there's no back and forth later. Or I forgot to mention that this is going to be changed. So we just want to add those fields just in case.
Got it. Okay. There are many questions coming in. I'll tackle one more and then we'll let you move on. This one from Aaron says, for internal comments, is there a way to have the comments only available to a certain department for internal discussion, and at the end have it removed/hidden at the end? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So from my understanding, it has to do a lot with the workflow. So how you do your workflow. So I recently learned this. So it just depends on the workflow as far as where you want to indicate certain fields to be visible or not.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, we'll let you keep going. We got more questions coming for you later. So
yeah.
Great.
All right. So next form. So since this form, the electronic position request form went through very good, and we were very excited about creating what more can we create, what more can we minimize with paper form. So the next thing was the student position request form. So very similar to our position request form is our student position request form. Again, this form was paper before my time. During my time, it was a PDF version where they fill out and they complete the form. So as you can see, it's a manual entry. There's a lot of ways that they can forget, or they can just not write any field and they just submit it over and send it over to human resources. So I did want to go over, oh, I think I lost it there. Sorry. I may have clicked too quick. Give me one moment. Okay. So going back to this form, again, the department will submit the position request form. The supervisor hiring manager from the department sends the completed student employment form via email. So that again is via email, or they would send it specifically to the human resources office via paper, just hand it off, send it. Sometimes they don't hand it off to the correct person, so there's no way of checking if all the information is correct. So step 3 would be human resources student employment reviews the form. During the review, HR ensures all information is complete. So again, like I mentioned earlier, there were cases where the hiring manager or the department will not fill out most of the forms, or they're unsure what they are filling out, so they would just leave it blank and leave it off to human resources to complete the form. And then again, that would create a phone call, create an email, scanning, sending it over. What did you mean by this? Did you need to request 2 students, 3 students? So it's again a lot of back and forth. So if the information is incomplete, HR contacts the supervisor from the department. So human resource / student employment logs in the student position request form in an Excel sheet for record purposes. Again, aside from our electronic position request form, we did have our student position request form Excel sheet where we kept record of all the incoming student position request forms that were submitted. So we would have, at the beginning of the academic year, we would start with 00-001 for the first student position request form for the academic year. And then we would write the requisition where you see at the bottom where it says for human resources use only, we would write the requisition number. So again, manual entry, we would type that information, write it again, whether it's manually or we would type it via the PDF version. So human resources / student employment sends the form to the designated approval based on the budget line. So we have 3 different individuals or colleagues that here review the budget. So for example, for our operating budget, we would send it to one specific person. For our grant purposes, if they are requesting a position via grants or restricted, it's another person. So again, we would send it via email, or we would go specifically to their office and have them sign it off. Luckily, they were down the hall, so I can just go ahead and drop it off, and then they would give it to me at their earliest convenience. But via email, again, with the PDF version, I was able to send it via email, but then we had those cases where we would just have to walk to their office and get that out of that manual signature. So you can see how much of that process is if at the beginning the form is not complete, and then going that back and forth and making sure I drop it off. And what if they're not there? Then we have to wait another day. So moving forward, second approval will review and approve the form and send it back to human resource student employment. So that would be whether they, again, send it via email or they just drop it off in my box that it's complete. Now, during this step, what I would do is I will go back to the Excel sheet and indicate that the form has been complete and when has it been completed, and then also when I will post the student position. I would, if it was a hard copy, I would have to scan it, write that information, send it via email, let the hiring manager department know that the position has been approved. If it was a PDF version, then I would just go ahead and send it to them. So once that has been completed, then I would go ahead and post the position or the student position in our student employment website. Again, like I mentioned, the process is very long, so it's a lot of back and forth, a lot of emails, manual emails that I do have to go ahead and send over to the hiring manager, the approver, and then again to the hiring manager. So luckily with Kuali, we were able to build a form similar to the position request form, but this is specifically for the purpose of requesting a student position. So as you can see, they would write the student position job title. They are able to attach the student position description. The reason why we have that option is so that if there are any edits that we need to make for the position description, we're able to make those edits as well in a Word document. We were able to indicate whether they have an internal application for record purposes. We want to ensure that we have all forms that are submitted in human resources, the duration of student employment, whether they are requesting for a spring and a fall and spring, or fall only, or summer only. So we were able to add that calendar depending on our dates of the academic year, the number of student employees. And then again, for the purpose of this, it's a lot of accuracy. So if the hiring manager is requesting the students, a number of students, we're able to see, the budget office is able to see, okay, they have enough for 10 plus student workers or 1 student worker. So it's the accuracy to make sure that we have all that data. And then if they have the work schedule, to make sure we have specifically their work schedule along. So this falls with the federal work study. So a lot of this information, we want to retain all of this information in the event that there's for record purpose, audit purposes, we have all of this information. So we were able to implement, again, all these required fields that are needed that would minimize the back and forth, because these are questions that I would ask. For example, when they would submit the paper form, I would go ahead and go back and ask them other questions. And with this form, we're able to just put it in one form and ask them all the questions that is required, and making those fields required as well. And then the interesting part, I will let it go play through while that way I can get to the budget line. So in that question, would you like HR to advertise the position, yes or no? So at the end, which I will go over the workflow, there's a section of email communication that HR receives, whether the position needs to be posted or not. So that alarms me that I do need to post the position. Most of the cases, they don't post them, but they do post them as far as if they need to indicate that information, then they would indicate it there, and I'm able to be notified via the email. So now the budget information. So they do need to go ahead and indicate which division they are in. And this is the great part about Kuali with the workflow, is that they are able to choose the type of funding. So I have mentioned before, there are 3 types of funding, which is the operating budget, the restricted, and the grant. So depending on what they select, it sends it with the help of the workflow. It sends it specifically to the person who needs to review it. So instead of me looking at the fund and seeing, oh, okay, well, this is going to go to this person, let me send them an email. With this use, it minimizes that part and then just sends it specifically to the person who needs to review it. And then again, I always add a comment section, because for me, more information is better for me and for the approver. So we added a comment section there. And then as you can see, there's a submission number. So as how I mentioned before, we did have a Excel sheet where we kept logs of every submission that was submitted. So this, with the submission number, I'm able to go back and see if a hiring manager has a question, oh, I submitted 0468, I want to know the status, or I submitted this form, what do I do, right? So now with the workflow for the student position request form, this is what we had designed. So how I mentioned earlier is the department manager will submit the student position request form. It gets sent directly to student employment. Student employment human resources will review the form. Again, if any questions or anything is filled out incorrectly, then we can have that opportunity to send it back for corrections, and then they would send it back to us rather than them being another email a different communication, manual communication. There's already a communication built in. So then it gets approved by student employment, and then again, but depending on the budget that they requested, that it gets sent specifically to that person. And then once that gets approved by the specific person reviewing the budget, then there is no in between myself and the budget, there's an automatic email that is sent to the hiring manager stating that the position has been approved. So we have minimized an email there where there's the back and forth of approval. So that is our specific, and then student employment will get that email acknowledgement stating that the student position has been approved and the process can move forward. So the benefits of paper to digital forms: information is captured accurately, reduces errors. All required fields are completed and submitted by the submitter. Human resources is able to keep track of the submissions. The submitter is able to keep track of the forms they have submitted. Direct notes from other approvers and departments such as human resources, business office, and budget office. Productivity and workflow based on the need of the college. Paper reduction, save time and space. So the main thing with this is the paper. So we were able to minimize a lot of paper and save a lot of time between our department and human resources and the department manager. And then the fascinating thing about it is they're able to keep track of what they submit. A lot of the times we would have a lot of back and forth emails of where's my form, where's the status of my document, can you let me know what the status of my document? And we were always the middle person. Oh, the budget office has it, the business office has it. Oh, this is what's going on with this position. So they're able to keep track and able to view those notes depending on where that process is. And with the help of my Oxy colleagues, I was able to provide you with some positive information regarding our electronic forms. So for a long time, HR required that we pick up a hard copy of the goldenrod paper form from the office from each position request we submitted, and we had to fill it out by hand. The more recent fillable PDF from released in 2021 elevated some of these issues, but it felt that it felt like turning it in was sending it into the void. I had no idea where it was at in the approval process or when a position would be posted. So how I mentioned that process is it was tedious. So with this, we were able to keep track of the approval process and has been an absolute game changer.
So on that one, before you go on, Jessica, one of the questions that came up was related to a dashboard. And I think one of the things that a lot of people are hungry for is some kind of bird's eye view into what's happening. Can you describe that briefly, like what your experience is managing what I would imagine is a pretty good number of processes or forms that need to be made?
Yes, so there is the dashboard for the submitter. So anything that the submitter has submitted to using Kuali, they're able to view what they have submitted, where their process is. So they're able to go back. As myself, as the administrator, I'm able to see everything that's being submitted. I'm able to see all the comments that are being made. So you have that dashboard. It's easy. It's in one place, and you're able to see exactly where it is in the workflow.
Thank you.
So adding more, I wanted to add more information regarding how the experience has been for our Oxy colleagues. So it says, what I like about the electronic student position request form is that it streamlines our process and helps our approval processing instead of waiting for paperwork to be approved by each appropriate parties. The electronic form is better. So it does say, I like how I have the ability to see the status of the ePRF when before I would have to bug HR with a million requests of status updates. Now I can tell the status and the date, time of each update, which is beneficial to me. Again, going back to the dashboard, they're able to view that, and it's very easy to access. And if anything is needed, then they can contact HR. And my ultimate favorite is I love the new ePRF, primarily the repetitive of the form. I don't have to hand fill out a new form each time and can pull up the previous information when filling out a new ePRF. This is a clear hierarchy of approvals, and I can see where the form is at any time I want to check. This saves my time and eliminates countless emails being passed between me and HR to request updates. Since implementations, the electronic PRF has streamlined and expedited the position request form process. So
So
yes.
Jessica, that all sounds amazing, but don't you miss the like element of mystery? Like there was like an air of like you guys had power by, I'm just kidding, but you probably have to find a new way to get your steps in, right? Across campus.
Not at all, actually. It has been like one of the comments, a game changer. It has been great. Like again, how I mentioned, it minimizes the numerous emails or having to gather all the emails coming from one person to the VP, or it streamlines and it puts it in one place so that we're able to access it.
All right. And I didn't mean to cut you off from your last slide there. If you want to bring that up briefly, so folks, if they want to maybe grab a screenshot, it was nice of you to share your contact information. I do appreciate that. All
And
right.
just to add on, these are two of the forms that I worked closely with, but we are continuing to build forms using Kuali here in HR and then mentioned within our Oxy community. So I just wanted to share these specific forms because I was able to go through this process with the help of our team. So I just wanted to go ahead and share that information. But yes, if there are any questions that you may have, you can feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm here to help.
Right on. Thank you, Jessica. I do have one question for you. We're almost out of time, but one of the things, it's like a universal question that folks have about using Kuali Build is, it's clear that you've created some fairly robust forms, pretty sophisticated workflows. You know, they're tackling a lot. What was your experience like learning how to use Kuali Build, and how long did it take you to really get up to speed to the point where you felt confident that you could create solutions such as you've shared today?
So how I mentioned before, I couldn't have done this without our team. So this is a team effort. So a lot of the times, like I had mentioned before, it is you do need to have that specific workflow or know exactly how you're going to process this in order to make sure that it is streamlined. The great thing about Quali is that you're able to test. So if you create this workflow, or if you create a certain form, you're able to test it before it is reached out to the public. So I think that was one of the great things, that we were able to test the form. We were able to provide, of course, the first process doesn't go as planned, but there's always that process after where we are able to finalize. But with the testing the tool, we're able to perfect it to our need.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jessica. Just an amazing story. And it's really, really encouraging for all of us at Kuali to hear these stories of transformation. I do just have a couple slides to wrap up before everyone vanishes on us here. So everyone, grab your phones real quick because I've got a few QR codes coming your way. So if you have your phone handy, I just want to make you aware of the oh, I spelled our name wrong. Holy smokes, that's not good marketing. Let's try that again. All right. We have a few events coming up that I want you to be aware of. We had recently, and this is available by way of recording, a really interesting webinar with the CIO of the University of Connecticut, Michael Mundrain. And he shared his experience identifying solutions, shopping for different solutions that would really help accelerate the digital transformation that he wanted to see at UConn. So that's worth checking out. So if you grab your camera and QR code that one, it'll take you right to the page. You register and then you can watch the video. Yesterday, we had a very interesting webinar for folks in the research community, talking about our next generation of conflict of interest management software that we have at Kuali. So I believe that will be available by way of recording shortly. Awesome. And finally, we have a webinar coming up tomorrow talking about curriculum management, and again, our next generation software designed for the future of curriculum management. Many of you, we had so many questions, Jessica. I only able to tackle a few. I just want everyone to know that we have your questions. I'll get answers. Some of those I'm not able to answer off the top of my head. We'll get answers to all of your questions and I'll fire those back in your direction. So this is your last chance. If you have a question, you can type it in real quick. I'll get you an answer and send it back in your direction. But if you're interested in learning more, if you'd like to see Kuali Build in action, you can reach out and contact our two wonderful account executives in charge of Kuali Build, Danny O'Rourke and Liz Christensen. They're eager to talk to you and share their experience and knowledge and get your questions answered and show you what Build is capable of. And that's it. I think that's it. I think we covered everything that we needed to cover. Jessica, once again, thank you so much for sharing your experience with Kuali Build. It was really interesting and encouraging to learn how far you guys have come, and looking forward to hearing more in the future and seeing where you're headed. So with that, we'll go ahead and end, everyone. I appreciate your time and interest and attention. Good luck out there. Take care, and we'll see you.
Thank you.
Bye.